Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Josh Snyder here, and today we are going to continue our top cut coverage from the Planetary Qualifier at your local game store in Mint Hill, North Carolina. Our semifinal feature match is Quinlan Tarkentown versus Iden Data Vault. Let's take a quick look at the deck list and then we will jump right into the match. Here we have Dom Rivero's Quinlan Tarkentown deck. This feels very similar to most of the Quinlan decks we are seeing now. We do have the addition of two Legends of the Force units. We have the very well statted 2-cost Depa Balaba Force Enabler with a very relevant ping in this matchup, dealing a damage to your opponent's base when they play an event. And we also have the really strong 6-cost Depa Balaba, a great ambush unit with Saboteur, which is extremely strong against Iden, who deploys on 6 with a shield token. But this is welcome in Quinlan decks because it's a great curve filler. Before, it was Plo Koon on 5, Han on 7, but now with Legends of the Force, we have a great 6-cost ambush unit in Depa Balaba. Something that stands out to me in the sideboard is Millennium Falcon, that third copy. Millennium Falcon, great against control decks. It comes in ready, can deal damage, and then you bounce it back to your hand before your opponent can defeat it. And now we have the Iden Data Vault from David Jones. This is classic blue-green villainy hard control with the addition of the new Darth Vader from Legends of the Force. Paired up with Timely Intervention, can remove 2 units in one action. So strong. But this deck is packed full of removal. Over half of the deck, event cards. And considering this is a Data Vault deck with 60 cards, that's really saying something. We've got, or what our plan is try to stop everything the opponent is doing early and in the mid game so that we can get to the late game bombs like Walker and Snoke and then into the Star Destroyers. We also have 3 copies of Vigilance, which not only can act as removal and healing damage from your base, but in long grindy games you can mill out or deck your opponent, and we can play Restock to get the Vigilance or other removal pieces we need back into the deck. So here we go. Both players are set and ready for the semifinals here at your local game store in Mint Hill, North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte. We've got Dom Rivero versus David Jones. David Jones came into the top cut as the number 1 seed, Dom the number 5 seed. David has opted for Dom to start with the initiative. We've got Quinlan Tarkentown versus Iden Data Vault. Dom on the left piloting Quinlan, David on the right piloting Iden. It's Quinlan Tarkentown, the classic aggressive tempo deck, versus David's Iden Data Vault, hard control. And we've got Dom starting us out with a Green Squadron A-Wing. Quick claim for David. Not uncommon for these hard control decks at all. We could see a turn 2 Merciless Contest or Power of the Dark Side. Very common for these hard control decks to take out that turn 1 play. But this time it's actually going to be resupply. So David playing resupply on turn 2, ramping up to 4 total resources. Dom will get in for 3 with Green Squadron A-Wing. David claims the initiative, and here's a strong play on turn 2 from Dom. Playing Guerrilla Soldier, has the win play to deal 3 indirect damage to a player. So David has to take all 3 indirect damage to his base, and then that extra ability on Guerrilla Soldier, if a base is damaged this way, you get to ready the Guerrilla Soldier. So Guerrilla Soldier readies, gets in for another 2 to David's base. So 8 damage dealt to David's base on turn 2 for Dom. Solid start here. David with the initiative. He's up to 5 resources already here on turn 3. And he is going to start with a perilous position, exhausting the Green Squadron A-Wing, giving it -2/-2. Now Dom will see if he can continue to put multiple threats on the board. It looks like it's going to be Surprise Strike for Dom here. He is going to attack with Guerrilla Soldier. It gets +3 power, so 5 damage dealt to David's base. And we do have another 2-cost unit. Very strong one in this matchup. Adi Gallia coming out. Now Adi Gallia has that ability when an opponent plays an event, you deal 1 damage to that player's base. David's deck is full of events, so Adi can certainly get some ping damage here in this matchup. Now David has the initiative. 13 damage on his base. He's up to 6 resources. 1 ahead of Dom. He is going to deploy Iden with his first action. And Dom is going to quickly attack for 2 with Adi Galea. So that's 15 damage on David's base. And David is going to play a strong removal event with Overwhelming Barrage, giving Iden +2/+2, bringing her power up to 6. So David gets to deal 6 damage, distributed as he chooses, to Dom's units. So Guerrilla Soldier and the Green Squadron A-Wing is defeated. 2 damage to Adi Galea. Now David gets to heal 2 damage from his base because of Iden's ability. When an enemy unit is defeated, David gets to heal 1 damage from his base with Iden deployed. So he heals 2 from his base and then takes 1 damage from the Adi Galea triggered ability. So a net gain of 1 for David as he goes down to 14 damage on his base. Now we do see the disabling Fang Fighter for Dom getting some advantage here, or getting some usefulness of that when played ability, defeating the token, the shield token on Iden. And then Iden attacking and defeating Adi Galea, taking out the 2-cost force unit. Quinlan Voss deployed and gets in for another 3 damage after David once again holds on to the initiative. So at the end of that turn, we've got 16 damage on David's base. Right now, not surprisingly, no damage on Dom's base, but all David is trying to do is stabilize this game and get to the late game where he completely takes over. He's got the first action. He's 1 resource ahead of Dom. He's at 7 resources. Dom is at 6 resources. David, a fantastic player out of the Duncan, South Carolina area. He's actually a good friend of mine, local. We're both in the upstate Star Wars Unlimited community here in South Carolina. And this is the deepest run he's had in a Planetary Qualifier, coming in as the first seed in the top cut. A fantastic run David Jones has been on so far. On the other side, Dom coming in from the Raleigh area, part of the Raleigh Raiders. Dom, the 3rd Quinlan Tarkentown deck that David has played today. David had to play Quinlan Tarkentown in the quarterfinals as well here in the top cut. Was victorious over Quinlan last round in the quarterfinals. Now once again finding himself facing off against Quinlan. Now here in this round, we've got the Rivals Fall taking out Quinlan. So Dom's leader unit defeated. And then Dom getting in for 3 damage with the disabling Fang Fighter. And at that point, David using the ability to pass his action back over to Dom. Dom playing another strong force unit, the 4-cost Ahsoka Tano, forcing David to discard a card. He discards Timely Intervention. Which is mainly used in conjunction with the new Darth Vader unit from Legends of the Force. That new Darth Vader with Ambush can essentially take out 2 units with 1 action if he has Ambush. So David discarding the Timely Intervention, moving on to the next turn after he claimed the initiative. And starting out here on this turn, David with the first big unit play of game 1, playing Supreme Leader Snoke. That gives all of Dom's non-leader units -2/-2. So the disabling Fang Fighter defeated. And we see a pretty big unit coming out for Dom as well. Now, not quite as big as it normally would be with Supreme Leader Snoke there. We've got Han Solo Reluctant Hero, a 4/4, ambushing into the Iden leader unit. So Iden leader unit defeated. And now Dom does get in for 1 extra damage with the Ahsoka Tano. And now first action of the next round. No glory, only results. Taking control and defeating that Han Solo reluctant hero, David. Once again, doing a great job cleaning up this board. Dom still with just one threat on the table. Ahsoka Tano only one power right now with Snoke on the board. So Ahsoka just barely chipping away at David's base. David using the Iden action ability here, essentially to just kind of pass it back over to Dom without actually using the pass action. And now we're going to see Dom play Kira. Taking a look at David's hand, we see Reinforcement Walker, Avenger, and Vigilance. So Dom gets to name one of those cards. And as long as Kira is in play, that card will cost David an additional 3 resources to play. But here's the problem. David has a 6/6 Supreme Leader Snoke in play, and Kira will not stick around for one more action. Supreme Leader Snoke quickly attacking and defeating Kira. So David not having to worry about the additional cost. And unfortunately, Dom unable to make any use of those 4 ready resources after playing Kira. You want to put multiple threats on the board. Of course, he needs to answer that Supreme Leader Snoke if he can. Tarkin Town is still available. It could deal 3 damage to Snoke, but he would have to find a way to deal at least 2 more. Dom has the initiative. 19 damage on David's base. Dom still has to find a way to deal another 14. Data Vault, that 33 HP base. Still a lot of work to do for Dom. Now we're going to see a second copy of Surprise Strike here. And Ahsoka Tano will attack into Supreme Leader Snoke with 3 extra power. So 4 total power into Snoke. Leaves Snoke with just 1 HP remaining. And now David sees the writing on the wall with Tarkin Town still available to Dom. Snoke getting in for 6 damage before it gets defeated by Tarkin Town's epic action. So Dom has found a way to get Supreme Leader Snoke off the board, but now he has to start putting more threats on the table. David still has all of his resources after using Iden's action ability, healing a damage. And it looks like we are going to heal more damage. It's Vigilance from David, healing 5 damage from his base and defeating the L337 that Dom had just played. Now Dom does follow up with another threat. We've got Plo Koon. Plo Koon's Coordinate not turned on right now. Dom only has 1 unit on his side of the board, so Plo Koon just a 3/6. And surely it will be difficult to turn on the Coordinate because David just has so much 1-for-1 removal available to him. Now it looks like David is setting up a pretty big play here. He smuggles in Timely Intervention, so he will play a unit from his hand, and it will get ambushed. It's the big Reinforcement Walker. So David will get the win played and on attack trigger here. When played, he discards the top card of his deck, healing 3 from his base. He will ambush and defeat Plo Koon, drawing a card with the on-attack trigger, and that is going to do it for Game 1. Dom has seen enough. David controlling his way to victory for an early lead here in the semifinals at your local game store. We are getting ready for Game 2 of this semifinal feature match. In North Carolina, Dom Rivero versus David Jones. Quinlan Tarkin Town versus Iden Data Vault. David with the 1-game lead. David Jones, what a great run he's been on today. Again, came into the top cut as the first seed. This was his very first top cut appearance in a Planetary Qualifier. Finding himself now just 1 win away from the finals. Dom has been in the top 8 3 times in previous Planetary Qualifiers. He's actually got a 75% conversion rate. 3 of the 4 Planetary Qualifiers he has competed in, he has made it to the top 8. This is his second appearance in the top 4, looking for his first appearance in the finals, but right now his back's against the wall here against Iden Data Vault. So game 2, Dom starts with the initiative. Adi Galea on turn 1 for Dom. David starting with a turn 1 play here in game 2. It's Dr. Pershing. David will look to generate some card advantage with Dr. Pershing. And as we move on to turn 2, Dom has the initiative. He'll get into David's base for 2. Adi Galea, of course, a fantastic unit in this particular matchup. A great way to ping David's base with extra damage off of these events. Now we see the Gorilla Soldier being played by Dom. All of the indirect damage dealt to Dr. Pershing. And then we see Power of the Dark Side from David. Dom choosing to defeat the Gorilla Soldier. And we did also see the Dr. Pershing action ability, so David was able to draw an extra card that turn. He also healed a damage with the Iden action ability because an enemy unit was defeated. So back down to 2 damage on base. So David having the unit in play was helpful to absorb the indirect damage from Gorilla Soldier, preventing it from readying this time on turn 2 as it did in game 1. Now we see here on turn 3, Dom playing Kira. We see a few removal options for David. He has Super Laser Blast, Takedown, and Power of the Dark Side. And then he has some units, the new Darth Vader from Legends of the Force and Devastator. Unfortunately, in that situation, Dom really only has one choice. He has to call Takedown with Kira to make Takedown cost 3 more because David could just immediately play Takedown with his 4 resources to defeat Kira. So Dom does call Takedown. We see David getting a second card out of Dr. Pershing. And Dr. Pershing was defeated, only had 1 HP remaining, had to deal 1 damage to itself with the action ability. And we see Adi Galea getting in for 2. Power of the Dark Side, defeating Adi Galea. David did have to absorb 1 more damage with that Adi Galea trigger, playing the second Power of the Dark Side. But once again, David able to take advantage of the heal from Iden's action ability. And now as we move into the next turn, Kira will put some pressure on David's base. 7 damage on now. As we are on turn 4, we will see Quinlan very likely be deployed. And David's just playing the waiting game here, using that Iden action ability for no effect. We do see Quinlan deployed right away, and now David playing the no glory only results to take control and defeat Kira. So that means that takedown back to costing 4. Quinlan does get into David's base for 3, so David up to double digits here, 10 damage on. Now we'll see, can Dom put several threats on the board? It looks like just 1. You would love to play maybe a 3 cost and a 2 cost there, but Dom just has 1 unit to play. It's Cassian Andor from his hand. So unfortunately, he does not get that additional ability of playing Cassian from the resource row using the smuggle keyword and being able to ready Cassian and get in for an extra 3. But Dom does have multiple units on the board, which is what you want really going into every turn against this control deck. You need multiple threats on the table. David does have the initiative. And now he has the ability to deploy his leader unit on this turn. The next 2 turns so important for Dom. We know that David has the board reset with Super Laser Blast in hand. Can Dom really put the pressure on over the next couple turns and get that damage count up quite a bit? David with his first action, he is going to deploy Iden Versio. And here comes Dom with a pretty good response. He plays Depa Balaba, the new 6 cost ambush unit from Legends of the Force. And with that Saboteur keyword, able to get around the shield token on Iden. So Iden defeated. Depa Balaba still has 3 HP remaining. But we do see David playing the resupply carrier, meaning that he is able to ramp and get an extra resource. So he's up to 8 resources now on this next turn. Dom was able to get an extra 6 damage in, but we know that David has Super Laser Blast in hand, so that resupply carrier is huge, and it is going to save some damage here, wiping Dom's ground arena. Very strong play for David. Dom had to feel good about Depa Balaba into Iden, but David has the ramp to get the Super Laser Blast early, only absorbing or only having to absorb another 6 damage to base. Now he is fully exhausted on this turn, no more resources. So Dom does have the ability to replenish the board. Dom playing Ahsoka Tano, forcing David to discard a card. He discards Overwhelming Barrage. Great discard option for David here with no units on the board. That Overwhelming Barrage isn't really doing much. Now Dom, unfortunately, just claiming the initiative, does not have a second unit to put into play, and we've talked about that throughout this match. It is so important for Dom to have at least 2 units on the board because David has plenty of 1-for-1 removal options where he can play 1 card and easily remove 1 threat on Dom's side of the board. Now last turn, David was able to heal once again with that Iden action ability back down to 15 damage on. Now, Dom does have the initiative, so he at least has that option to get in 3 damage, potentially more with an attack buff with Ahsoka Tano. But Dom would love to get more threats on the board, and he is going to smuggle in the Hotshot DL44 Blaster. Ahsoka Tano will get +2 power and attack here. The Blaster, such a great card. Being able to smuggle it in for 3 and attack with a unit. Getting that additional +2 power. So David up to 20 damage on his base. 13 HP remaining. But he has plenty of resources now. He's up to 9. David could even play something like an Avenger and really start trying to lock down Dom's board that way. But we are going to see another timely intervention reinforcement walker play. Second straight game that David has made this play. This time he plays timely intervention from hand. Reinforcement walker coming in with the when played trigger, healing 3 damage from his base, attacking into Ahsoka Tano, drawing a card with the on attack trigger, and then ambushing and defeating Ahsoka. That is just so good. Being able to get card advantage, healing damage from his base, and now has the big 6 power unit in the ground arena, the reinforcement walker that can continue to take pressure off of his base. Dom has just 4 resources remaining. Needs to reestablish this board and do it quickly. He does play Green Squadron A-Wing, so he does push his threat into the space arena. But now David has the initiative, and that reinforcement walker still has 4 HP remaining, so it's just enough to dodge the epic action on Tarkin Town. Tarkin Town can only deal 3 damage to a damaged unit. So Dom certainly needs to find a way to answer that reinforcement walker, and David is going to play Vigilance, defeating Green Squadron A-Wing, healing another 5 damage. He's back down to just 12 on. Now we do see a big play from Dom. It's the Han Solo, ambushes and defeats reinforcement walker, but David has a perfect answer to Han with the Merciless Contest, defeating the only unit that Dom has on the board, which was Han Solo. And Dom just can't get any threats to stick. We are now in the late stages of this game. David has 10 resources, maybe 11. I may have miscounted there. He has 10 or 11 resources, only 11 damage on base. And Dom starting the turn with no units on the board, playing another Green Squadron A-Wing. But this is trouble for Dom here in Game 2. Dom desperately wants to force a Game 3, get to the finals for the first time, but this does not look good for him. David playing another big threat. We see the Avenger coming down. And that forces Dom to defeat the Green Squadron A-Wing. And now this is big trouble as David has complete control of the board with the Avenger. We do see the Millennium Falcon coming in ready for Dom. The Millennium Falcon piece of junk will get into David's base for 3. After the Dr. Pershing comes down in the ground arena for David. David is just in such a good spot right now. It's not a complete Avenger lock here because Dom does have the ability with the Falcon to keep it on board if he chooses and have multiple threats. But we are going to see Force Throw forcing David to discard a card. He discards the Supreme Leader Snoke, and then Dom playing Waylay to bounce the Avenger back to David's hand. But David does have the initiative, so he can replay that Avenger. Dom bouncing Millennium Falcon back to his hand instead of paying the 1 resource to keep Falcon in play. That at least prevents the Avenger coming out and defeating Falcon with David's first action. We do see David using the Dr. Pershing action ability, drawing a card, replacing that card that he was forced to discard last turn off of Force Throw. Now Dom does play the Gorilla Soldier. 3 indirect damage will be dealt to David. Let's see where David assigns it. He could protect his base if he wants and keep Pershing on the board. Pershing would still have 1 HP remaining if he took all 3, but it looks like David is going to go into the base instead. So 3 indirect damage to David's base. The Gorilla Soldier readies, but it will not matter because now David does play the Avenger. Gorilla Soldier defeated. And once again, Dom staring down the 8/8 Star Destroyer that is continuously threatening his board. Dom playing L337, actually smuggling L3 into play. We see the Quinlan triggered ability, dealing 1 damage to Dr. Pershing. First time we've seen that triggered ability in this game. Now we see Millennium Falcon coming back down, getting in for 3. So that is going to be 20 damage on David's base. David has just claimed the initiative. We do see Tarkin Town used, defeating Dr. Pershing. And that will stifle the card draw ability that David had. But the problem is, for Dom, is David still has Avenger in play. That 1 threat for Dom on the board is threatened right away, not even considering what David may have in his hand. Dom did bounce the Millennium Falcon back to his hand instead of paying the 1 resource, keeping that ability to replay Falcon and hopefully get 3 more damage in each round. And we see Perilous Position taking out L337, keeping Avenger at the ready. Now Dom does play Ahsoka Tano. That will force David to discard a card, and Dom is just hoping that David has a bunch of units here because then he could exhaust the Avenger, but he discards an event. Discarding Rivals Fall. Avenger does not get exhausted, and now he swings into Dom's base. First damage on Dom's base here in Game 2. 8 damage to base. Ahsoka Tano is defeated off of the on-attack ability on Avenger. And now the action back over to Dom, still in a ton of trouble. David so close to advancing to the finals here. The life just being drained out of Dom and this Quinlan Tarkentown deck throughout this match. We see Dom playing a Daring Raid to deal an additional 2 damage to David's base, but then David immediately using the Iden action ability, healing 1, back down to 21. Millennium Falcon is played, and David has a response this time with Power of the Dark Side. Millennium Falcon taken away from Dom here. And now we move on to the next turn. Dom with the initiative, but Avenger in play. Dom, no units on the board, so any threat that he plays can immediately be defeated. Avenger lock is on. What a great match this has been so far for David. He has really controlled both games from the outset. He's had the answers he's needed, the removal, the timely removal at certain stages of these two games. We see the Fang Fighter coming out for Dom, but Avenger will get into Dom's base for 8. That's 16 damage on. Disabling Fang Fighter defeated. Does Dom have a way to put multiple threats on the board? Can he find a way to answer the Avenger? Dom taking a look through his resources. He is going to smuggle Cassian into play, so Cassian readies. But David still has all of his resources. He is going to slam down the Devastator, defeating Cassian, and that does it. David Jones is victorious, and in his first ever Planetary Qualifier Top Cut appearance, he is heading to the finals with a chance to take home the crown here at your local game store. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Make sure to stay tuned for the final match of this Planetary Qualifier. That will be coming next week. May the Force be with you, and until next time, take care.